Welcome to our channel. We'd be grateful if you'd give this video a like and subscribe for more stories that matter. This is a story about a retired general, a routine stop at a gas station, and a moment of injustice that ignited a national reckoning. When two officers mistook a decorated hero for a suspect, they didn't know the Pentagon was listening live. One phone call unraveled their careers and sparked a movement for accountability, proving that dignity demands respect, no matter who you are. General Marcus Thompson thought he was just stopping for gas, but when two officers treated him like a suspect instead of a hero, they had no idea the Pentagon was listening live. It was a warm Thursday afternoon in Franklin County, Virginia, the kind of day where heat sinks into your skin and everything moves slower. General Marcus Thompson, 67, had just finished a quiet lunch with an old friend from Fort Gregg Adams. He carried the weight of a man who'd weathered storms on battlefields and in Washington's closed-door meetings. But none of that mattered when he pulled into a Fillmore gas station off Interstate 85. He drove a rented beige Toyota Camry, nothing flashy, just reliable for a short southern visit. He wore a navy polo tucked into khakis and worn loafers, the kind you slip on when you're off duty and not expecting to be noticed. As he reached for the pump, he noticed a patrol car slow as it passed the lot's entrance, then circled back. "Here we go," he muttered to himself. Thompson wasn't paranoid, but he could sense when something was off. The cruiser parked across the lot and sat for nearly a minute. Inside, two white officers watched him. No gas, no coffee, just eyes. Then the doors opened. Officer Brett Kessler, about 30, stocky, buzz-cut, approached with a hand on his holster. His partner, Officer Dylan Harper, younger, lanky, trailed a few steps behind, not rushed, but not casual. "Sir," Kessler began, "can you step away from the vehicle for a moment?" Thompson stayed calm. "Something wrong?" "We got a call about a suspicious vehicle matching your description," Kessler said. Thompson raised an eyebrow. "A beige Camry at a gas station?" Harper shifted nervously. "It's more about the individual, sir. You, fit the report." Thompson didn't flinch. "I'm a retired 4-star U.S. Army general, name's Marcus Thompson. Just came from Fort Gregg Adams. I can show you my ID." He slowly reached for his back pocket, pulling out a crisp military ID and retired officer card. Kessler glanced, but didn't take it. "I need you to step aside from the vehicle," he said, firmer. Thompson sighed, not fear, but frustration. "You have my ID. You can call it in. Takes 30 seconds. Harper glanced at Kessler, waiting for a cue, but Kessler had made up his mind. "We're not doing that here. Step away now." Thompson's phone buzzed. A scheduled Pentagon call. He answered on speaker, hands visible. "Thompson here, on standby," he said, voice steady but taut. Kessler's patience snapped. "That's it. Hands on the vehicle now." Thompson didn't move. "You're making a mistake." Harper reached for cuffs. "Sir, we won't ask again." And just like that, it happened. Two officers, guns holstered but hands aggressive, pushed a retired general against the warm metal of his rental car. Knees scraped, shoulder twisted, cuffs clicking shut. Thompson's phone slipped to the pavement, still on the call. "General Thompson?" a faint voice repeated. Kessler didn't notice. Harper did, but ignored it. "You're being detained," Kessler said. You'll answer questions downtown. For being black at Pump 4, Thompson said, voice even but bitter. Kessler didn't respond, just looked annoyed. Harper seemed unsure. They dragged him to the cruiser, but the voice from the phone was already moving, urgent, and headed for a situation bigger than either officer could imagine. In Washington, D.C., 30 miles away, Lieutenant Commander Carla Evans sat at her Pentagon desk in E-ring when her voice echoed through Thompson's dropped phone. "General Thompson, do you copy, sir?" She leaned forward, straining to parse muffled sounds, shuffling, a man barking orders, then Thompson's voice, calm but sharp, cutting through. Something was wrong. She didn't hang up. She hit a button on her secure desk phone, patching in her supervisor. "I think General Thompson's in trouble. I'm still on the line." Colonel Nathan Brooks sat up. "Phone location says Petersburg, Virginia, near Route 460. Get me military communication services and patch in Virginia State Police. Now." Back at the station, Kessler scribbled on a tablet. Harper paced, glancing at Thompson in the cruiser's back seat like he was starting to realize this wouldn't end as he thought. Thompson hadn't spoken since being cuffed, not pleading, not protesting, just sat, hands bound, staring ahead. Tension built, but no one knew how close it was to exploding. Across the street, Jada Mitchell, a young woman, watched from her parked car. She started recording when she saw the officers pin Thompson. Her video hit Twitter with the caption, "Two cops arresting an older black man who literally said he's a general." It was gaining traction, tagged to news outlets and civil rights lawyers. In the county dispatch center, Troy Callahan took a strange call. "This is Colonel Brooks, Pentagon. Confirm if your officers are detaining General Marcus Thompson at a gas station off 85. Callahan blinked, checked the call log. "We had a suspicious vehicle stop minutes ago. Beige Camry, right?" "Yes," Brooks said. "Get me your supervisor." Within 10 minutes, Sheriff Alan Mercer was on the phone, told in no uncertain terms that his deputies were detaining a decorated general whose credentials were known at the federal level. Mercer's tone shifted. "We'll handle it." But in the cruiser, time crawled. Thompson knew better than to speak. His silence wasn't weakness. It was control, knowing words could be twisted, especially when the ones with cuffs thought they were in charge. Harper finally opened the door, avoiding Thompson's eyes. "Sir, I need to ask, that ID you showed, was it real?" Thompson turned slowly, locking eyes. "You want to ask me that now?" Harper looked ill, shut the door, and whispered to Kessler. Their exchange was heated. Kessler shaking his head, Harper pointing at the car. Then a black SUV screeched into the lot. 2 men in suits, military communication services, stepped out. One flashed a badge. "Who's in charge?" Kessler straightened. "I'm Officer Kessler." The taller man spoke. "You've got a federal problem. That man in your car is General Marcus Thompson. Your body cams better be on." Kessler stammered, "We were just following a call." Thompson was released. No apologies. Wrists red, expression unreadable. The suit leaned toward Kessler. "You have no idea how bad you just messed up." Thompson looked at Harper, then Kessler. "I gave you my name," he said simply. Harper's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The incident's ripple wasn't just the officers scrambling. Word was leaking through political channels, and the Pentagon wasn't the only institution watching. By the time Thompson was freed, his wrists bruised, He didn't demand apologies or threaten lawsuits. He picked up his phone, cracked screen showing 23 missed calls, local, federal, one from a 3-star general. In the SUV, Thompson said little to the agents who retrieved him, just asked to speak to Lieutenant Commander Evans. She was patched through. "Sir, I've briefed Colonel Brooks. State Police and Internal Affairs are notified." Thompson exhaled, not relief, but restraint. "Make sure they know I cooperated every step. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't resist. This wasn't just a mistake." Evans paused. "Understood." The SUV pulled away, leaving Kessler and Harper under a storm that hadn't even started. Harper leaned against the cruiser, hands on hips. Kessler stared at the highway exit, jaw tight. Within an hour, Virginia's governor was briefed. The Secretary of Defense was aware by the time Thompson reached his Petersburg hotel. His name trended nationwide, not for a speech or veteran work, but for being cuffed like a nobody miles from a base he once commanded. The Pentagon's legal team demanded all surveillance, call transcripts, and incident reports, leaving no stone unturned. The question that made everyone squirm: why wasn't the ID checked on site? In Franklin County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Mercer faced tense faces. Reporters circled. A dispatch officer handed him a Pentagon letter. The headline alone was enough to sweat. His press conference was short, awkward, calling it a procedural glitch. But no one bought it, especially Thompson, watching from his hotel, TV muted. He didn't need sound. He knew how it played. That night, Colonel Brooks met with the Chief of Staff and senior officials. "We need to tread carefully," one said. "He's a symbol, like it or not." "No," Brooks replied. "He's a man who served this country longer than most in this building." "What does he want?" another voice asked. Brooks paused. He hasn't said yet. But Thompson knew exactly what he wanted. Not heads rolling, not yet, but acknowledgement, not just of who he was, but how quickly that was erased when 2 officers decided he didn't belong at a gas station. The next morning, a federal investigation was announced. Independent oversight, military liaisons, civilian board members, all demanding transparency, or at least its appearance. In Richmond, Congressman Luis Navarro, a former Marine-turned-politician, gave a fiery House statement. "If this can happen to General Marcus Thompson, it can happen to anyone. Don't tell me this was a misunderstanding. It was a judgment error, colored by the worst kind of bias." Thompson, once silent, was becoming a national symbol again, not for battlefield strategy, but for how the country fails even its own when the uniform comes off. While the Pentagon's machinery moved with precision, the real storm brewed in public opinion, where reputations don't just falter, they implode. 2 days post-incident, Officer Dylan Harper couldn't sleep, sitting shirtless on his Colonial Heights apartment bed, staring at his phone's glowing screen. Every headline bore his name, every comment a fresh wound. His girlfriend stopped texting. His mom told him to skip family dinner until it settled. He knew it wouldn't. He tried explaining to her, "I didn't know who he was. I followed Kessler's lead." But the truth clung. He saw the ID, heard the name, and chose to ignore it. Kessler, meanwhile, stood his ground in the Franklin County Sheriff's locker room, slamming his locker, muttering to guys on shift change, "All this over one old man who wouldn't comply." The room went quiet. Deputy Lionel Cruz, a 15-year veteran, Said nothing to Kessler, but texted the captain later, "Might want to check Kessler's body cam before the media does." The footage told a different story than the official report. Kessler's language was aggressive from the start. Thompson's ID was clearly shown. He didn't resist or move quickly. Yet the report's phrases, non-compliance, possible resistance, painted a false picture. By Monday, both officers were on administrative leave. Harper's internal interview was a breaking point. He admitted doubting his partner's judgment, but felt unable to challenge him. Sheriff Mercer's tone shifted from days earlier, now nervous, using words like disappointed and deeply concerned. His public apology was too little, too late. Outside, protesters gathered, locals, veterans, students, some driving hours. Signs read, "Respect isn't optional. Cuff one, shame all. If a general gets cuffed, who's next?" Thompson still hadn't made a public statement, declining CNN, MSNBC, even Fox, not out of fear, but principle. He wasn't ready to speak until it meant something. Instead, he visited a local VA hospital. No cameras, just walking halls, checking on wounded veterans, reminding himself, service isn't always loud. Meanwhile, Franklin County's leadership held an emergency meeting. Mercer was grilled for 2 hours. Why wasn't the ID checked? Why weren't officers trained on military IDs? Why did they ignore protocol? Council member Lillian Brody said, "This isn't about bad apples. It's a broken process that rewards confidence over curiosity." These officers chose not to listen, and that choice has consequences. Harper watched the hearing from home, eyes red, knowing she was right. That night, he typed a note on his phone, unsure if he'd send it to Thompson. "I was wrong. I let someone's confidence override my instinct. You didn't deserve this. I hope one day I can say this to your face." He didn't hit send, not yet. While the department scrambled, the outside world turned it into something bigger. No press release could fix it. The following Thursday, General Marcus Thompson climbed the marble steps of the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., not for a tour or ceremony, but his first and only press conference post-incident. Flanked by 2 retired generals and a Navy SEAL turned congressman, he stood under a canopy of mics, hand steady, expression hard to read. "Let me be clear," he began. "This isn't about me. It's about recognition, not medals or salutes, but a person's humanity, no matter what they wear or drive." Major news outlets watched closely. Civil rights leader Dr. Henrietta Wells nodded slowly. "I wore this country's uniform for 4 decades, Thompson continued. "I've been through war zones, negotiated rooms most never see. But days ago, I was suspicious, not for what I did, but how I looked at a gas station." His voice didn't waver. He didn't need theatrics. "This country gave me every chance to rise, but it also gave 2 undertrained officers the confidence to ignore all I am. That should trouble every American, in uniform or not." The crowd applauded. Reporters shouted questions. Thompson raised a hand. "I'm not here for political theater. I'm here because this has to mean something. Let this be the last time anyone in Franklin County has to recite their resume to be seen." Sheriff Mercer watched on the break room TV, silent. Harper, streaming live in his apartment, felt a pit grow with every sentence. Nationwide, Conversations erupted in classrooms, offices, dinner tables, local news, not just about racism or policing, but assumptions. How quickly we decide who's who based on what we think we know. Richmond organizers planned a town hall, not a protest, but a talk. It filled in hours. Teachers brought students. Veterans came in uniform, all wanting to speak, to be heard. Thompson didn't attend. He didn't need to. His story was already in the room. The sheriff's office released unedited body cam footage. It went viral, the backlash fierce. Kessler was suspended indefinitely, pending a review, yet Kessler's suspension wasn't enough. Old complaints resurfaced, some dismissed, some never taken seriously. Harper faced a second interview, this time with federal oversight. Something unexpected emerged. Veterans nationwide, black, white, Latino, Asian, shared stories of being ignored, disrespected, or mistaken for someone else once the uniform came off. It wasn't just Thompson. He'd opened a floodgate. In Detroit, Marine veteran Sheila Tate started Behind the Badge, a campaign retraining law enforcement on handling military IDs and recognizing service. Donations poured in. People wanted change, and now it had a face. Thompson never sought the spotlight but didn't run from it. At a closed military leadership meeting, someone asked if he'd push for officer discipline. "I want better systems," he replied. "I don't want anyone in uniform to ever again have to explain their worth." But a private conversation loomed, testing his beliefs in forgiveness, justice, and power. A quiet letter from the Commonwealth's attorney requested his presence at a disciplinary hearing. It was preliminary, no officers yet, but Thompson knew it wasn't over. A week later, in a modest Chesterfield government building, he sat across from 5 lawyers and a Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services rep, all tense, careful. The chair began, "We thank you for your composure and cooperation. Today, we'll review the full scope and value your recommendations on discipline." Thompson leaned back, pausing. "I'm not here to ruin lives, but I'm not here to let this slide either." The group nodded, relieved yet uneasy. Later, a private meeting was arranged with the officers. Not a courtroom, just a neutral room in a county admin building. Harper entered first, hat in hand, eyes down, looking sleepless. Kessler followed, defiant but quieter. Thompson sat, hands folded, the silence heavy. Harper spoke first. "I'm sorry, sir. I was wrong. I knew better. I didn't step up when I should have." Thompson studied him. "You ever serve?" Harper shook his head. "No, sir." "Maybe that's part of the problem." Harper swallowed. "I should have seen you as a person, not a problem to solve." Thompson nodded, then turned to Kessler. "You had a choice at every step," he said. "You chose arrogance over inquiry, control over communication." "I was doing my job," Kessler said, less certain than at the station. "No," Thompson replied calmly. "You did your version of the job, one that said my skin and car mattered more than my words or ID." Kessler looked away. Thompson stood exhaling. "I'm not interested in seeing either of you behind bars. That doesn't make me safer. I want this to mean something. I want retraining for every officer in this county, cultural literacy, and one more thing." He paused. "I want you both to stand before your fellow officers and tell them exactly what you did wrong." Harper nodded instantly. Kessler said nothing, but didn't leave. The meeting ended without handshakes. Thompson left, the room lighter, not from justice, but from something shifting. He'd spoken truth to the system that tried to erase him. 2 weeks later, both officers stood before the department during mandatory training. Harper read a full statement, voice shaky but clear. Kessler's words were shorter, stiffer, but his own. He admitted not listening, ignoring the ID, treating a person as a suspect, not a citizen. For the first time, he looked uncertain. The department mandated ID protocol checks, quarterly implicit bias training tied to community feedback. Thompson didn't attend. His presence had already changed the room. But one last thing needed saying, not to a board, officers, or reporters, but the public. In his Alexandria, Virginia, home office, sunset casting shadows on framed photos, a full-dress Afghanistan shot, an Arlington funeral flag, and one of him at the museum, mid-speech. Let this be the last time. He hadn't planned to speak again, but silence can become complicity. Weeks after the hearing, he recorded a message. No press, just one camera. His voice. "When I was a boy," he began, "my grandfather told me something I never forgot. He said, 'One day, you'll wear something that tells the world who you are. But what matters most is how they treat you when you take it off.'" He looked at the lens, pausing. "I earned respect in this country the hard way, through struggle, leadership, sacrifice. But it shouldn't take 4 stars and a military record to be treated like a person at a gas station." He clasped his hands. "This isn't about hating cops. It's about holding power accountable, understanding how fast assumptions turn dangerous, how easy it is to devalue someone when you've already decided who they are." He spoke of fear, not his, but good law enforcement's, misdirected. "I wasn't hurt that day," he said, "but something else was. Dignity, the thing we don't always name." The video spread faster than expected, not for drama, but honesty. Men and women who didn't know his name watched and felt seen. Black teens shared it with parents. Veterans sent it to precincts. Some departments used it in training. Thompson's words weren't just a reflection. They were a challenge. Weeks later, Virginia counties and beyond added new checks to police training. Not all were perfect, but things moved. Conversations that once faded lingered. More asked not just what happened, but why, and what we can do to stop it. Harper resigned quietly that fall, taking a job at a nonprofit aiding veteran ex-inmates' reintegration. He never forgot Thompson's words about choices. Kessler fought his discipline, lost, and was terminated. Not quietly, but his name stayed in public records, as did the footage. For Thompson, he returned to mentoring, meeting young officers in training, sharing real stories, not textbook ones. "I'm not here to teach you to shoot," he'd say. "I'm here to teach you to see." In his final public message, 6 months post-incident, he said, "Change doesn't come from outrage alone. It comes from accountability, memory, deciding your silence isn't harmless anymore. If you wear a badge, wear it knowing its weight. If you see it misused, you can't look away." He signed off with a small nod. That video became his legacy, not medals or rank, but a man asking his country to look in the mirror. If this story stays with you, ask, what would you do in Harper's shoes? What would you see in General Thompson's face? Don't wait for another story to ask again. Subscribe for more real stories that challenge us to grow, reflect, and be better together.